Welcome to the All 32 Pod, Thursday, May 29th, 12:03 in the afternoon. When we record this, Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson alongside. You're listening to, as I mentioned, the All 32 Podcast, a part of and a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. We thought, as we discussed and planned out the next few weeks, we would get into coaching with these next few episodes. And today we will do the top 5 coaches in the National Football League. And we'll throw an ode to a couple guys that don't belong at the top of the list. In fact, belong at the absolute opposite end of the spectrum. But, Will, before we do that, Patriots had OTAs yesterday, but the big news necessarily wasn't what happened on the field. It's what happened, what we believe, this past weekend in Miami. And if you've seen it by now, there's a viral video of Stefon Diggs on a boat with a lot of bikini-clad women. Looked like a good time to me. Those who studied the video, and I looked at it, I don't have as much experience maybe as some other people do in this front, believe that he is distributing a foreign substance, a pink substance. Look, I don't know what it is. He told the young ladies to have fun and then come back to him after. So I don't know. Patriots are aware of it. Mike Vrabel seemed irritated, not by the question itself, but more to the point of, we just gave you $18.5 million guaranteed, including a $12 million signing bonus when no one else appeared to be willing to go that way, Stefon. You're rehabbing from an ACL injury in your 30s. You haven't really been around for OTAs. He showed up, I think, once last week, but not here again, Will. And it just sort of puts, I think, Mike Vrabel in a tough spot because you haven't even started. This is voluntary, right? You already have your first crisis, semi-crisis, I don't know how you want to term it. What were your thoughts when you saw the video, Vrabel's reaction, etc.?
Just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into what players do off the field. I think is very much of their own choice. I think you can't control that. I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes with everybody in workplaces that we kind of don't want to admit. So it's or think is real, right? Everyone's got their work personality and they're off the field, and some guys it's mirrored, some guys it's very different. I don't think the issue is Stefon Diggs partying on a boat is an issue. I'm not excusing. I don't know. Again, I have no idea what he was distributing, not distributing. I think everyone's made a lot of different guesses, and it's a lot of groupthink. We weren't there. We don't know, and I didn't submit a drug test or whatever. Stefon Diggs, I think there's a bigger societal issue as why that's even being recorded. And I'm not blaming, victim blaming or whatever, but I just think it's weird. Like, why that even needs to be documented is weird to me. I just go have fun. If you're going to go have fun, that should be behind closed doors because it embarrasses the organization. And that's questions that don't necessarily, have to be asked, that shouldn't have to be asked, right? I think, as you just said, it's just a distraction that's unnecessary. I don't think anyone was like, wow, Stefon, if he posted on a picture just of a boat and that was it,
right?
We can all assume what was going on, but we don't know. And it's just that now you don't have to assume anything, and I just think it's one of those things with Diggs where he's at the point in his career where you can kind of go one or two ways. You go the more veteran route of I only have so much time left in the league. Let me capitalize on it. Let me be I've gone through the young trials and tribulations of being a young player in the league and then there's the other one, people that kind of go the opposite way. And it's I have all this money stacked up and I've accomplished pretty much everything I want to accomplish. He hasn't won a Super Bowl, but other than that, he's, been an all-pro, been a Pro Bowler, gotten 3 massive it's hey, I'm just going to kind of ride this out. And he's worked so hard to get back from the ACL. So it's just a shame it's been a distraction, but I don't think it's something we'll talk about again in 2 weeks unless there's more to the story. But it kind of just seems and also maybe just surround yourself in a better situation. Just don't put yourself in that situation at best. But yeah, I don't have too harsh of thoughts on that Diggs is an idiot and all this. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to be too much of a realist here. I'm not shocked. I'm just disappointed that the whole situation even is a thing right now.
Well, you and I aren't naive to what goes on in the National Football League, or for that matter, what goes on with guys in their 20-somethings or 30-somethings, or quite frankly, anybody that has a lot of money. and he has a lot of disposable income. As we mentioned, never mind what he's earned previously, but what the Patriots put on the table for him this year, assuming he didn't just screw that up, because I'm sure there are 1,000,001 outs for the Patriots to say, you know what, we're not doing this. If his answer to Mike Vrabel and to ownership is not acceptable, then they probably could just say, we're going to part ways with you. We're not going to mess around with this. What I found interesting, well, multiple things about this to me stood out. One, as I wrote for Boston Sports Journal, he's either guilty of really bad judgment, because it appeared to me that he knew he was being filmed. He looked directly into the camera and smiled.
He did like the Office, Jim Halpert, like did the breaking of the fourth wall.
Right. So like, I know some people say, oh, he didn't know he was doing it. Boy, again, we weren't there. We don't know specifically. It just felt like I've seen a lot of these videos where people don't know that they're being, and it's sort of like the camera's down low. No, it looked like he knew exactly what was happening. But if it's not guilty of bad judgment, it's just arrogance. The arrogance of, I'm going to put myself in this situation, and I know that the league would frown on this being on video, and I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't care.
There's been a trend, Mike, that if things, there's been a lot of stuff that's bad stuff's happened over the years.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel, Greg Hardy, this very different situations. Just hear me out. Ray Rice is on video, and we all saw it, and his punishment was a lot worse than some of these other guys who you hear about, right? Or plenty of people have gotten in trouble with foreign substances, whether it be weed, cocaine, Adderall, whatever it is.
Jabril Peppers for the Patriots.
It doesn't matter. There's a million things, right? But when you see it versus when you just have your figment of your imagination, the punishments usually are different. That's why this one's a little tough, because we don't really know what it is. And I know everyone's speculated on what it may be. Mm-hmm. I would say, like, there's a million things it could be. So maybe just be careful of what we speculate it actually is. Again, I don't know. It's pretty, like, you're using your best judgment.
Sure. I think the one thing we could probably say, though, Will, and I heard this floated yesterday by those who, of course, come to defend the player and the situation. Always. It could just be caffeine pills.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. My sentiments exactly. You get those. I just want to leave one last thing on this. Vrabel was asked a number of questions about it at the top of the press conference. It only lasted about a minute and a half, the exchange. But at the end, he was given sort of an out. And the out being a simple question about Diggs and how have you seen him progress in his rehab during the time that he's been here? And he said, again, the timelines and prognosis and everything, we're working hard to get him back and to be ready to go. When he's here, we'll coach him and we'll have him ready to go. And that confirmed what Kayshon Boutte would tell, or Kayshon Boutte confirmed later, that he hasn't been around much, if at all. So, again, maybe look, it's voluntary, but you and I know that teams want guys who are rehabbing injuries to be with the medical staff so they can monitor.
It's one of the biggest struggles of the offseason program, of guys coming off injuries.
Yep.
I want to be with my trainer, my doctors, all that different stuff. And the team's doctors don't always agree with – it's the infamous Rodgers with Neil Elitrosh and, hey, you're cleared to play. And the Jets had a different answer. And it's like, hey, I'll do my best to help convince them that you're ready, but I can't convince the team doctors who have their own insurance, no own liability. And we've seen Diggs at the Knicks games. We've seen Diggs on a boat. We've seen Diggs in Instagram workout videos where he looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. Fully honest, he looks way better than I thought he'd look for an ACL in May. But it would be nice to see him. Jermaine Johnson's been doing the same rehab with the Jets for his Achilles, and he flies back and forth. And if he can afford it and he'd do it, that's great. But we've also seen Jermaine in the building. So it's like, oh, wow, Jermaine's bulked up. You just see a little glimpse where it's like, oh, I'm at least here a bit. It'd be interesting to see if Diggs now comes in because of what happened, or if this says, hey, I'm going to stay far away from the facility until camp starts.
Yeah, they have another availability on Monday. That's the final OTA. Then mandatory minicamp is June 9th through the 11th. Not generally, 98% of the time in these things, if you have medical concerns, you're not going to be made available to the press. So perhaps he's out there at mandatory minicamp doing something, anything, whether it's with the team or off to the side. But in terms of whether we get the chance to talk to him, my guess would be, unless they want to get out in front of this, we will not hear from him because he doesn't have to be made available during that time. For those of you listening to the show, we ask you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel. Again, say that 10 times fast, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots and league content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the next time a new video drops. All right, we'll put that in the rear view because generally I thought the OTA, it wasn't that great. It was not that there was anything bad happened. It just, I didn't feel like it was as nearly as competitive as last week. Some people disagree. I didn't find a ton of takeaways from it, so I'm leaving it there. Let's get to the head coaches. We're not going to do this draft style. We're just kind of ping back and forth because I think we're going to have guys that we believe overlap in each of our top fives. But don't we have to start with Andy Reid? Is that the logical place for you?
I guess, yeah. No, yeah, I guess.
You got your McVey crush on, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
And look, I'm right there with you. When I started to craft together my list, those are the first two names that came to mind, right? I
think Andy's
the longevity is hard to sort of bypass here.
Yeah, I think again, I don't want to ignore the Chiefs, and we kind of end up doing that a lot of time. We talk so much about them during the year that sometimes it's like you get a little fatigue.
Yep.
I think Andy, until supplanted, is the best coach in the league. And I think it's just the infrastructure he's built. I think it's the sustainability of the way he developed his quarterback, the way he's able to develop an offense and be able to try different bells and whistles throughout the year in order to craft game plans for the playoffs. And I think he's built a strong staff. He's been able to retain guys like a Steve Spagnuolo, who, again, maybe is just meant to be a defensive coordinator, but he's still been able to keep him on staff, and that's ownership. And he's done a lot of really good things. They've dealt with a lot of character concerns that it doesn't seem to affect them on Thursday, Sunday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. The Chiefs play on every single day of the week. So, Andy's probably one just because of the longevity. And it's kind of like where Bill was towards the end, where it's like you kind of just have to put him one because it's like,
and they win Super Bowls or get to the Super Bowl. It seems like every year.
Close to as long or as good? No. So, I didn't think last year was Andy's best coaching job. I actually thought 2 years ago, albeit the playoff run was a little fugazi, but they ended up winning the title, so it doesn't matter. I thought that was his best coaching job. Mahomes didn't have a great year. Kelsey's starting to look old. The team finally went through some turnover on the roster, and they still managed to figure it out. He's probably one, and he's kind of like the consensus. I think everyone would have him in the top three max. But yeah, I think, Andy would probably be one for me as well.
Yeah. The thing about him, and obviously we've talked about this a few times when we've referenced Kyle Shanahan, and maybe is he, depending on what happens this year, are they at the end of that run with him as the head coach? And it might be best for the two sides to part ways because after a while, Andy in Philadelphia, it just sort of, it wore down. The last year in Philadelphia was bad. They part ways. Kansas City wisely and immediately scoops him up, and he goes and wins games with Alex Smith, and then drafts Mahomes, does the right thing that some teams just won't do or aren't afforded, and had him sit the entire year, played the last game of the year. Then they moved on from Smith in the offseason and boom, to the moon with Mahomes. But he won 60% of his games before Patrick. So when people want to say,
he was amazing in Philly.
Yeah. There are people that will make the argument that no, he's just lucky because he got Mahomes. He was a fine coach, but when he got Mahomes, it's what took him to the next place. And it's like, no. He was really good in Philadelphia. It's just that last year maybe leaves the mark.
They were in either the conference or divisional round of the playoffs for 6 or 7 straight years before they broke that and went to the Super Bowl in 2004. And if McNabb's not drunk and T.O.'s leg's not broken, maybe that's a different. No, I'm serious though, right?
Yeah,
you go back and that game was pretty damn close.
Yep.
And you go back and ask a lot of those Patriots guys, that Super Bowl was it's a grind, man. T.O. was,
T.O. was unbelievable in that
unbelievable game. And on a broken leg. And McNabb was throwing, every single Brewski quote and Rodney Harrison quote was oh, we knew it right away. Guy could not figure it out. And I think we look back at Andy as a lot of what we look at Kyle Shanahan now is, hey, amazing regular season coach, gets a little tight in the close games, tends to get too conservative and changes his plan. And, Andy's broken all that, and there's a good shot he breaks Belichick's, the win total, right? And if he hangs on for long enough.
273 wins right now. That was really difficult for me to say.
65% winning percentage over almost 500 games is insane.
Yeah, it is. Let's move on to the next guy. I think you and I share thoughts on this. And like I said, I considered him as the potential number one, and that's Sean McVey.
Yeah.
80 and 52 in his career. I believe he has 8 playoff wins to his name so far. What he was able to do last year to me really stood out because it was sort of supposed to be a reset. They had the bad year 2 years ago, took a step back, kind of cleansed their cap, go all in on defense in the draft, and then, especially in the second half of the season, they were as good a team as there was in the league. And as we mentioned on the previous pod on Monday, the only team that really gave Philadelphia any kind of problems in the postseason were the Rams, and that was in Philly, in bad weather. They had the ball down, I believe, 6 with a chance, right, inside the 30-yard line before Jalen Carter went full beast mode and, forced an incomplete and had a sack there. So, to me, Sean McVay is in the conversation every year for what he's done, the way he has been able to morph that offense. In particular, Cooper Kupp wasn't it last year. It started to fade. Like, he found other ways to get after it. Kyron Williams more leaning on the run game. There's just a lot of things about Sean that you have to like. He has the one Super Bowl. He got his pants coached off in the first Super Bowl by Bill Belichick. Yeah. But he learned from it, and he's gotten better. And he just, as long as he wants to keep doing this, I think he's going to be in the conversation when we do this every year.
Yeah, a couple of things with McVay. He's had 3 different iterations of himself. We should have also comped Andy Reid instead of just to Callahan and probably to Greg Popovich a little bit, where it's like every year they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be well coached strategically. Like, they're going to overcome bad years, good years. They'll win a bunch of titles. McVay, again, 80 and 52 in his first 8 years. Obviously, the 1 year when Stafford got hurt in 2022. McVay's still 38. I think we kind of forget that. We used to talk about Boy Wonder, in the first couple of years, and he was like 32 in the Super Bowl, and then now he's 38, and it's like we talked about him like this grizzled veteran. Again, good playoff record. He's won a title. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's reinvented themselves from this 11 personnel only offense that like just puts up 1 million points a game, 99 Rams, the whole thing. Develops Goff, and then moves more into this well-rounded team that's going to be, these receivers that can block Fred of any single, formation, all these different offensive genius stuff. They've overcome injuries. Like, McVay's coaching tree is excellent. Every single thing about what they've transformed the Rams into, like, it makes you wish the Rams were still in St. Louis, because like that fan base and that excitement that organization would have had mixed with like who McVay is would have just been such a cool thing. I know he's very Hollywood, but like it actually would have, he like almost gives you such a little Terry Francona with the Guardians vibes, where it's like fan base is going to show up and be excellent, and like they're going to overachieve every year in a lot of senses for like, hey, they went all in. We don't obviously less need the GM tree there, the head coaching tree, like those things matter. And if I was drafting a head coach, I think I'd draft McVay. But again, Andy's cemented himself as one. It's no hate towards him. It's just the only thing with McVay, and it's similar to Kyle and O'Connell and all these guys, is sometimes in the playoffs they get a little impatient, or they get a little too patient. Depends on. It's usually like a little impatient. One weird stat with McVay. This is, I don't know why I looked this up. McVay is number 1 in the NFL in successful challenges 6 of the 8 years. Weird stat. Don't know why it matters, but like so many coaches are so bad. Kind of interesting. He's averaged the 1.8 overall in the league in successful challenges.
Well, it says that he has a good communication up top, but again, that falls under coaching, how you structure your organization. He had John Streicher, who's now with the Patriots and following Mike Vrabel, but that's an interesting one. So I don't know where you're going to go next. This is a little bit of a projection on my part because the resume is not super long, but I love almost everything about it so far. And that's Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Just 3 full seasons as a head coach. He had a 13-win season his first year. Second year, quarterback lost for the year. Well, Kirk Cousins blows out the Achilles. And yet he still won some games with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs, including Josh Dobbs getting there literally like 3 days before a start or 4 days before a start, which speaks, I think, well, to Josh's intelligence, but also O'Connell being able to craft a plan on short notice for someone who didn't have experience in his system. And then last year they win 14 games when their first round quarterback, who probably was in line to make a real run at the starting job, doesn't play after the first week of August because he tears his ligaments in his knee. And he revives Sam Darnold and gets Sam Darnold paid a healthy chunk of money this offseason in Seattle. So 34-17, hasn't had the playoff success. They got bounced in the first round. They had to go on the road even as a 14-win team playing the division winner. But I just feel like he has shown me the magic touch, hiring Flores and letting Flores run the defense. And like sort of, if you read about their relationship and hear the two talk about each other, there's a lot of back and forth. So even though, yes, it's Flo's defense, there's a lot of communication back and forth on kind of what Kevin wants. But Kevin's also still learning from Flores. I think there's a massive high ceiling here like that. And I already think the floor is pretty high for him. So that's a projection for me because, again, it's a short resume. But if you're asking me if we were doing the drafting quarterbacks now, he'd be right up near the top of my list.
Yeah, while we're halfway through, I want to say some guys I don't think are top 5 coaches that are consensus yet. I don't think Sirianni's the top 5 coach.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a hot take. I think he does a really nice job of a high floor. He's a high floor coach. I think, again, we've seen the ceiling. I'm not saying he's on like a ceiling coach. I don't know how much impact he really has in terms of like, I get the organization is just, it's one of those like, how much credit does Aaron Boone get that the Yankees are in the playoffs every year, right? Like, I don't know. They've had a GM they have a top 3 or 4 GM in the sport that's been there for 25 years and an owner that spends a ton of money. And the brand's amazing. Like, how much is Howie and Jeff Lurie responsible more so than, and the infrastructure more so than Sirianni? I wouldn't have Tomlin as a top 5 coach right now, nor would I have McDermott. 2 guys that are extremely consistent. They're just the playoff stuff leaves you wanting more. McDermott's got an alien at quarterback. He's been in a division that's been very up and down, and they've been fantastic. They're just a lot of almost. And like, there's a really random year in there where the Bengals curb stomped them at home. And it feels like McDermott's an excellent regular season coach. He's a top 10 coach. But to be a top 5 coach, I need to see some type of playoff success, in my opinion, of like, especially when you've been there that long and you don't have any excuses. Like, O'Connell has never had an alien quarterback. Like, O'Connell with Josh Allen, like, I like better than McDermott Josh Allen. And then just with Tomlin, Mike, like, top 10 coach for sure. He's going to be, I'm sure, be a Hall of Famer someday. And like, Mike's amazing. It's nothing to do with that. But like, has it kind of dried out a little bit? He's the highest of high floors. He's the ultimate high floor coach. Every year it's the playoffs. It's the divisional wild card round. They're getting beaten by 30 points. And it's like, dude, at some point, you can blame everything else around it, but he kind of runs that org, no? And he has run that org for a long time. I can't just be like, hey, you're a top 5 guy because you win 9 games a year. I feel like that's unfair.
Yeah. I mean, they've been in quarterback hell since Ben, blew out his arm in, what was that, 2018?
Yeah.
And Ben was sort of tailing off anyways. They'd started to decline a little bit under him as well. Yeah. I would push back a little bit on McDermott. I had him flirting with it. He's not in my top 5, but I have him like right on the cusp.
Yeah, I have him like 7 or 8.
Yeah. I mean, 5 straight years with at least one playoff win. 86-46 career record. The problem I have with him, the reason that, I mean, obviously, I haven't won a Super Bowl yet, and that's part of it when you have the alien at quarterback. But having to go through Mahomes and Burrow, like the AFC is beastly at the top. Baltimore as well, who they've handled. But my biggest beef with him is that he's a defensive guy first, and it's been the defense that's let them down in the postseason in those big moments. And, they threw Leslie Frazier under the bus when the 13-second game happened. It was, Frazier got a lot of blame, but also they bounced their special teams coach. What did the message get? told to Tyler Bass or
Well,
not.
turnover at OC too, and like, hey, we're just gonna everyone else gets blamed.
As I said, when they made the move a year and a half ago, firing Dorsey and inserting Joe Brady as the OC, to me it was okay. This is it now. You've turned over everybody. You're the next guy in line. And look, he's done a great job. He took that program out of the depths of hell, and they are consistent and they are there every year. But at some point, if you want to be in this conversation in the top five, you gotta get to a Super Bowl, and he hasn't done that yet.
Can I give you one that I think is a top five guy that I don't know if you would have said? I still think Jim, not John, is a top five coach, and I just again, I know he needs to win a title. I get it.
He's been awesome in the NFL. He burns out people, but 55 when he coaches well.
69% winning percentage, and he's had done it now with two orgs. And again, like you just immediately roster was not good. They trimmed back a lot of fat off that roster last year, and we're like, hey, we're going to try to semi reset because we got in the depths of hell with some of the cap stuff and whatever, and like. He moved off a lot of the right guys at the right time, right? It's like, hey, Keenan and Mike Williams, like, we love you, but like, you got to go. And both guys looked like crap last year. And hey, like Joey Bosa, we're gonna let you walk. Joey Bosa's already got a calf injury, and it's, and hey, like they moved off a lot of the right guys. They took shots on guys, and Herbert. Again, the playoff game was tough because I think both teams were like dying to lose that game.
No, you take it.
But like. It's year one. Like going into this year, I would have, the two guys we mentioned or three guys we've mentioned, Harbaugh, and I'd probably still put Kyle as a top five coach just because of what he's done. But like outside of that, it's a lot of guys, Campbell, Vrabel types that have like almost gotten there or maximized things. So it's funny, Mike, the quarterback stuff, the top five is really easy. The top 10 is difficult. I think the coaching stuff's the opposite where the top 5 is difficult, and then the top 10 is pretty easy. It's like a lot of guys have won a ton of games, Sirianni, LeFleur, et cetera. But is that the guys you think of first? Because for me, it's not. I think of like a situation more than just the coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jim is absolutely in the conversation because of how quickly he's turned around programs. What he did in San Francisco, just don't forget it. Like, it just did an awesome job there.
And then when they leave, look what happened.
They went into hell. Yes. Yeah. They went into absolute hell.
Michigan lost 6 games last year.
Yeah.
No, he's 13-0.
He's tremendous. It's just the shelf life on him is probably short. It might be 4 or 5 years in
LA. It might be Herbert's second contract, and then it's like time to move on.
Yeah. Unless he's learned. I mean, who knows? I know. Just
nobody's got it better than them.
Throw it out there that there's that possibility. You mentioned LeFleur, and again, you talk to me tomorrow, I might put John Harbaugh above him. Today, I'm leaning LeFleur in there, 67-33, and obviously they had the great teams with Rodgers that didn't ultimately push through because Aaron in big spots did not play his best football. I put that more on Aaron than I do on Matt. But now without him, making the transition to Jordan Love, 2 10-plus win seasons, they were pretty frisky last year. Had Love been healthy, I don't know. I mean, there were certainly moments I think you and I both felt last year like, I don't think I'd want to face them. They might be the best team in the conference. So I think it's a big year for him. But today, on this day, as we do the top 5, I would put him in there in the back end of that top 5 because I just think been consistent. I think they finally may have gotten the DC thing right. I think Jeff Hafley did a decent job last year, let some of the athletes go a little bit more. We'll see. This is a big year for him as well. Hafley in that position and that role because he's got a lot of talent to work with. But I like the job that he's done there. I like the offense. I'd like him to be a little bit more involved defensively, and it feels as if he's evolving more in that regard and being more a part of the conversation with Hafley than he was with previous guys. So again, something to watch going forward. But right now, today, I'd put him in my top 5.
Mike, let me ask you 2 things. One, why do we talk about Tomlin the way we do and not the same conversation with John Harbaugh, who's, I'd argue, underachieves more than Mike Tomlin does in a lot of senses. Like he's had again, this is my issue with McDermott is like you have Lamar is arguably the biggest alien we've ever seen a quarterback in terms of like he's a more explosive runner than Michael Vick and like is a really talented passer. He's won a ton of MVPs. And I know we give Lamar a huge hard time in a lot of ways of like some of the playoff failures, but it feels like John escapes that criticism. And I can't tell if like, I don't know, Mike Tomlin I just gave him a lot of grief. Like, hey man, like you can't just run cover 3 for every single Patriots playoff loss for like 15 years.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the Ravens. It's like the same, I mean, at home, bad Chiefs team and they choked. And then it's like this past year, a gettable Bills team. And you're right there. And it's like the stuff to start. And yes, Lamar's to blame and the organization and different guys. And yes, Mark Andrews, and you can beat him up all you want. But like, he's the face of the organization outside of his quarterback. And it's been a long time since 2012.
So that's the problem for me because I know you can turn it that way. I look at their last 2 playoff exits. You know, the game against the Chiefs, Zay Flowers' stupidity, Lamar, the interception in the end, like those were player. Your team was in position to do it, and the player made a bad decision or a bad play that cost them the game. And you say, well, Mark Andrews, one of your best guys, like that, that can't happen. And it happened. Lamar, the ball's in his hands all the time. He's gotten so much better at making decisions. But 2 years ago, he makes a bad decision. Zay Flowers, it was just a dumb, so it's almost, there's a period in there where absolutely I would say, John, you didn't maximize your talent. I think he's maximized it the last 2 years, and he's actually been let down by some of his best guys in those biggest moments. Whether they can get over the hump again, as we talk about, you've got to go through Mahomes, you've got to go through Burrow, assuming that Cincinnati can get themselves back in the mix, and you've got to go through Josh. So it's clear that path in that conference is really difficult. It's a tough. If you flip them over to the other conference, it might be a hell of a lot easier to find yourself in a Super Bowl every year or in competition for one. In the AFC right now, it's tough.
I know we want to talk quickly about the bottom of the ring. How close? We're not going to obviously touch too much on the 7 guys that are new in jobs because it's hard to really rank them. But this is on Patriots Press Pass, and I know everyone likes to say, "Oh, it's a full NFL show. We only talked about the Patriots for this amount." We did talk about it for 10 minutes to start. How close is Vrabel to that top 5 mark, or are we how much are we ignoring the last few years in Tennessee versus how much are we not going to highlight the first couple, which were spectacular?
So I put him I had him in the top 10 of my list, and I had him in the same conversation with, this may surprise you or not, I don't know, with Kevin Stefanski and Sean Payton. Because I think Stefanski,
I agree,
has been saddled with one of the biggest
time coach of the year, Mike.
Yeah. And as we talked about during the offseason, when there were rumblings that maybe he might be let go, we're like, teams will jump all over that. The Jets would have been foolish not to have put him at the top of their list and chased him. It may turn out that Aaron Glenn is the absolute right guy. Certainly, again, just his offseason sample feels that way. And I put Vrabel in that same category of I saw what he did, and I was around those teams enough where there was the preparation level, the toughness, the attitude embodied the coach, that fed off the coach, through the coach, and Derrick Henry and Ben Jones and Taylor Lewan and Jeffrey Simmons. And they built a beast there for 3 or 4 years. And they did it with Ryan Tannehill, who was not a top 10 quarterback. And, and his best year was the 12th or 13th best quarterback. But for most of that time, he's the 18th or 19th best quarterback. And they were right in the mix. They were a number 1 seed one year. So the talent certainly eroded, and they felt that in the back half of Mike's second to last season. And then obviously the final season was a mess. And he certainly bears some responsibility because he had more influence on the roster. And the talent started to erode. So, but as a coach, I always felt like his football teams were incredibly well prepared. And I think I've already seen a difference just here in the spring.
A lot of nuance and knowing the rules, knowing different things just to get that little bit of an edge.
You watch him in person and talk about the OTAs. Quick story. Javon Baker, their 4th round pick from last year, did nothing, caught 1 pass, and was scratched for a game because he showed up late in London or missed curfew or whatever he did. Never quite got the playbook. Baker got Vrabel gave him the business. It wasn't yelling, but like a direct. He got squeezed off on a deep ball, and he didn't seem to power through the end of the route. And ball falls incomplete. He's kind of jogging back to the huddle. It was on the opposite side of where the offense was, and Vrabel was like, "Finish the play. Like, don't give up on the play." Later, blatant pass interference by Baker, pushes the defender down, catches the ball, goes 60 yards for a touchdown, talking all kinds of junk to the defense, late getting back to the sidelines. And Vrabel, again, this with a little bit more edge, like, who took you out of the game? You're still in the huddle. Get your ass back to the huddle. So he had to loop all the way around and get back to the huddle. And, like, there was irritation there. But then after they broke practice, who was walking off the field side by side? Vrabel and Baker. Talking to Baker, and that was we went from tough love to sort of probably a little bit softer. Hey, Javon, that's a nice play, but like you gotta this, and I think you're capable of that. So you watch him in action, and especially having watched what happened here last year, night and day.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you. I want to just highlight a few guys. I won't go the top 5, but just a few guys that I'm of the non-new coaches, the guys to me that are either very clearly in the could be fired this year, or I got to see a lot this year to bring you back a third year. Raheem Morris to me is like a prime.
I had him as my worst coach.
Yeah,
I had him dead last.
He's an unbelievably good defensive coordinator. He's extremely well liked. He's a likable dude. He relates really well as a coordinator. I just have a lot of like Fangio, Saleh, Flores. The list goes on of guys. It's like as a DC, they excel. But the second, it's got to be clock management and preparedness on the offensive side of the football and controlling this and the pressers and these different things. It's like, geez, man, like the Washington game last year was so bad.
Awful with the clock.
And it's like, and it wasn't the only game. It was like the Steelers game to start the year. And it's like, dude, what are we doing?
Difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, right? So yeah. I think it's a massive year for him. He got his first job way too early. I think he was 32 maybe.
Yeah.
But he's 29 and 47 in his career as a head coach. And
this is a second stint. You just don't get.
Yeah, I think there's a lot on this. The other thing that did surprise me I don't know where I found this, 8 years as head coach or DC, where he's been in charge as the DC or the head coach. Never been a top half defense in terms of yards allowed. So points allowed, yes, but not yards allowed. Like, again, that's your reputation. Bring it up a level. This is a big year for him, no question. Who else you got there?
Both the Eagles coordinators in the Super Bowl a couple years back, Steichen and Gannon. Steichen's really been disappointing, I got to be honest with you. Like, I was really high on Steichen after year 1. Year 2, I understand, again, all the situations.
Yeah.
But they've had some really ugly losses in there. Like, both the Giants' losses the last couple of years have been like, what is that?
Yeah.
Ew. And I don't know. I watched him in person last year, and I just felt like, I don't know. The whole point of having the offensive head coach and this genius guy is like, hey, look what you did with these different guys and Hurts and all that stuff. And it's like, I understand Anthony Richardson, you can't control all of it, but the optics last year were bad. The press conference stuff was awful. And Gannon, I felt like the beginning of the year, I'm like, oh, a little surprising. Mm-hmm. And then the bottom fell out totally, and they were pretty awful towards the end of the year. And like, again, he's a coach, he's 12 and 22. And like, you're going into year 3 now, and you're winning 35% of your games. Like, at some point, what are we doing? Last 2 ones here, Brian Callahan should really be as the worst because he only had 1 year. Of guys that have not only had 1 year, at some point we're going to have a Brian Daboll conversation. Mm-hmm. And this is a big year. And Ozempic Daboll is like, maybe he's a good coach this year. Maybe things will change. But that guy that we saw in 2021, I don't know where that coach went. And now it's just kind of like the angry Belichick. Like, he's doing everything the Belichick stereotypes of his assistants that are amazing year 1, maximize effort, maximize discipline and yelling and all that stuff and showing the players up, and it erodes. It's kind of what it feels like. Yeah. And then just the last one I wanted to highlight. We're going to have a Mike McDaniel conversation at some point.
Mm-hmm. I believe in our absurd predictions. I predicted he would not make it through the year.
Do I think he's a top 5 worst coach? No. again, we're not accounting the guy. I tried to leave out like the Canalises and Callahans that like had 1 year, and it's hard to
know yet. Yeah,
we don't know yet. And then 7 new coaches, right? So all of a sudden, we're only really ranking 22 guys, 23 guys. McDaniel stuff. It's like the defense chokes at the end of the year every year. The offense gets worse as it gets colder. The quarterback's not playing at the same level. The culture is really bad, and that's on the head coach. Like, I don't know, man. I know Greer's been there forever, and you can blame Greer about a lot of stuff, but like, anytime Teron Armstead didn't play, they were pretty awful.
right.
And for an offensive,
he's supposed to be the offensive mind. He's supposed to be able to figure that out.
The Niners miss, guys, and Kyle figures it out, and it's like Sean Payton able to figure it out. I know we didn't mention him. Payton, I think, is squarely in the top 15, probably top 10, but like another guy hasn't won in a really long time. Just McDaniel thing's weird, and I feel like it's probably, unless something changes, it's probably coming to an end, and he'll be really awesome as the OC for the 49ers in 12 months, but for right now, he's bottom pretty lower, much lower than I think. For a guy that got extended 12 months ago, I don't think I was expecting to say his name at this point in the show.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I don't have any other adds to that because, like as you said, Canales actually did a nice job in the second half.
Taylor.
Zach. Zach leaves you wanting because they're obviously the offense, but then how much is that Joe? How much is that Zach? But it's a big year for him too.
At some point, Zach, we got to start better than 0-3 or 0-4 to start a season. Like, we can't play this game every year.
No. You cannot dig yourself that hole and then try to get out every single year and pull the rabbit out of your hat. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of the All 32 Potty. Is Will Parkinson. I'm Mike Giardi. We will see you again next week, where we will look at offensive coordinators and then look at defensive coordinators later in the week, and of course any other news that comes across our desks over the course of the weekend and next week. We thank you for watching as always. We thank you for subscribing. Tell your friends, tell their friends, on and on. Keep supporting us. We appreciate you very much. We will talk to you soon.
It is caught! Touchdown! The New England Patriots select